the verses used when discussing homosexuality in the Bible in 1 Corinthians and 1 Timothy, impossible to do in 10 minutes. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is go to my website. Go to Canyon Walker Connections, read the article in detail. The article has over 5,000 words in it. It's pretty good scholarship, I think. This is just a teaser to get you to go there, and I would appreciate you doing that. So before you go and you leave all those nasty comments down there that I don't know what I'm talking about and this is what it means, and please give the other side a hear, because it's a fool that makes his decision on one side of the argument. I've been where you are. I've believed what the traditional church has believed for many years. I just don't believe it anymore. I just see biases. I see a sleight of the hand in translations, and it just doesn't please me when it's being applied to 5 to 10% of the population and keeping that group outside of our churches. I would just choose to look at it more in depth, which is what I've done. So please go to the website. Pretty well discussed there, and I'm not even going to read the verses here. The words are malakoi and arsenokoitai. In the locations, the addresses are 1 Corinthians 6, 9 through 11. It translates many times as homosexual offenders. And in 1 Timothy 1, 9 through 11, the word will often translate as homosexuals. So I know what the words say there. They translate in the modern Bibles. Malakoi translates many different words. Effeminate, men who practice homosexuality, male prostitute, perverts, homosexual. And arsenokoitai translates as sodomites, people who practice homosexuality, homosexuals, people that have sex with the same sex, sodomites, men who abuse themselves with men, perverts. So lots of different translations of the Bible, and many of the translations are quite kind to the lesbian community. So if you're a clever lesbian, and I know lots of clever lesbians, if you're a clever lesbian and you don't want these laws to be on your backs and binding you, you'd be very smart to go get an English Standard Bible, because only men are under the law and you're not. And if you use a New American Standard, you're listed as a homosexual and under the law. So if you're going to a non-open and affirming church and you've got an NASB, ditch it. I mean, I don't mean to be flippant about this, but this is how crazy it is. It comes down to the translation of the Bible you use, and then are these translations accurate? And if you're very clever, still only lesbians. If you use a New King James Version or an English Standard Version, you're going to both be avoiding anal sex and sex with men, so you got to get out of jail or get out of hell free card here. So, I mean, can you imagine God being this flippant, saying, if you lived your life by the right version of the Bible, you can come in. If you didn't, then you don't. And for churches, this is how crazy it could be too. If you want to ensure that gay men and women don't come into your churches, you're going to have to use a New King James Version. If you only want celibate gay men and sexual or non-sexual women, then you can use a New Living Translation. And if you only want to allow lesbians and not allow gay men in your church, then an English Standard Version will suit you just fine. I mean, is that crazy? So what I really care about is how these words have made some kind of transition through history. What did they mean? What could they have possibly meant? Because these are two words that are used in lists. Not easy words to understand. And I will tell you with arsenokoitai, if anybody says to you, I know what arsenokoitai means, they're lying, because no one knows what that word means. Paul did coin it. It was used for 600 years without any other translation other than just being repeated in a list. And when it finally broke out of that list, the word was translated until, well, in 1525, when people in literature were writing about homosexuals, I think there were 12 or 13 words they could have used. They didn't use arsenokoitai. So the word was translated in the original Bibles as abusers of themselves with mankind, and then it became liars with mankind, and until 1951, arsenokoitai meant given to unnatural vices. And then in 1958, arsenokoitai made the logical leap. See, I sound snarky because it's just, It's just wrong to do this to people. It got translated to sodomite. And then in 1963, in the New American Standard Version, arsenokoitai became translated as homosexual. But the Catholic Bible in 1967, until 1967, that word was masturbators. So I guess there was too much of a problem with that word. Not enough people were going to be getting to heaven on the anti-masturbating rule, so the word became debuted as homosexual. So, and then I want to look at two. I don't want to let that go. Malakoi. Malakoi also did an interesting switch. Until about the 50s, the word malakoi was translated as male prostitute. And in about the 60s, malakoi started its drift from the word male prostitute to homosexual. Now, I don't see that the two are the same. I mean, there are female prostitutes, and I don't think female prostitute is interchangeable with heterosexual woman. So that bothers me, that male prostitute all of a sudden became malakoi. I mean, did somebody get this John Smith revelation that they dug up a Bible or concordance, a Strong's Concordance, Century 1 version, and, did this recitation like for Muhammad come out of heaven, and it said, I didn't mean to say male prostitute. I really meant homosexual. Doesn't that offend anybody? I mean, even if you're on the other side of this, don't you want at least to be sure that the verdicts and the edicts that you're holding against others, that you're not allowing in your churches, or you're just preaching at them and telling them that they're not righteous and holy in the eyes of God, don't you want to at least have a really solid opinion that you know what this means? Pick up a concordance. I'm just challenging you. Go to my article, pick up a concordance, see what these words malakoi and arsenokoitai say. Arsenokoitai translates as male better. Nobody knows exactly what it means. My interpretation of that list is it means a male prostitute, someone that goes to a male prostitute, and then a pimp. So that's my take on it. It does not mean homosexual. So I also want to challenge you, if you don't think that there's gay Christians, get yourself into a community of GLBT believers. That's really all it took for me about 5 years ago. When I sat in the back of a worship session at a gay Christian convention. I was the first straight person to go. It's called it's gaychristian.net is their link. And I went to the GCN conference in Seattle, just questioning. I knew that something inside of me was saying that something wrong was going on. I didn't get it. I have a pretty open heart for social justice and the people on the edge, and this is the one that God put in my path. And I went, and all I had to do was sit through worship. GLBT Christians have righteousness too, the same way we do. It's faith in God. It's faith in Jesus. And if you put yourself near them, you will see the fruits of the Spirit. You will see obedience to God. You will see people that follow God. And I personally think that this revival that we're all waiting for to come to the church, I think it's going to come from the GLBT community, because these are people that have had to fight their way back to God. They understand mercy and compassion and grace. And to my GLBT friends, I ask you as hard as you can to toe that line of mercy and compassion and grace back to the straight community that doesn't understand you and those that malign you. And just stand firm in Him. And you have a place at the table just as I do. Please read my article, canyonwalkerconnections.com. You can slam me, but just read it first. Instead of believing what you think you know, try to go learn something and at least see another point of view. Because if you're really nasty, you know what? I'll just delete you, because you're not my target. My target is the 10% that's been blocked at the door. canyonwalkerconnections.com. Thank you.